Okay, so Ryan, you were speaking on how there wasn't really much of a transition between one thing to the next because you were always doing some kind of snowboarding, skateboarding, and otherwise, and you were always in that industry. Yeah.
I welded them together and I installed them in a basketball court in a park and created what became the Rhodes skateboard park way back then. And then I donated all the ramps, built them myself in my garage and shop, and then we would literally drop them off at midnight, so no one would stop me. And then it developed into, if I wanted good skateboard parks, I was going to be required to build them. And so the same thing with snowboarding. I would go to these events, and this is back in the early night. They weren't fun. They weren't jumps. They were jumps built by farmers, people that would go from farming and heavy equipment operating in the summer to heavy equipment operating up at the ski hill, and they don't know any skiing and snowboarding.
Right.
So anything that they built was crazy to them. And it was not at all up to what we were doing as we were growing into the sport. So because I didn't party and do the things that all of my other friends did, I was there to jump and to have fun. And so I started to volunteer and help other operators that were attempting to build the stuff. And what they needed was someone who competed at a certain level to be able to guide them. And I did it
Hmm.
for free for quite a few years. And then it just, sponsorships and whatnot all kind of like meld into one. And so there wasn't any transition. I was literally, the year that I was the first ever US snowboard champion, I was building those events. So it wasn't a transition, it was all part of it. I was a big package of, the riders desired me to come in and build because then the venues were better. And the venue people wanted me to come in and build because the venue was better. So it was a very symbiotic relationship that went on for, say, 1995 all the way to 2015.
Right.
And it was exciting, fun. I built everything from Olympic venue to World Cups, all the World Championships, the US Opens, the Nippon Opens, the Canadian Opens, the entire Grand Prix circuit since '96 all the way through to say about 2020. And it was great. It was great. And so when I wanted tools and equipment to be able to do the thing I wanted to do with jumps, I fabricated them in my shop. And then I was just grateful that people wanted them. If initially it was me just giving them to them, and then that became a job where people were like, "Hey, we'd like to purchase them." And I'm like, "Oh, you want to buy them? That's crazy. Okay." And so then I would put a price tag on them and I would sell the equipment. So then it developed what became Planet Snow Tools. So we had the Planet Snow design with my partner Pat Milendowski, and then we had Planet Snow Tools with all the other friends from around Boise that were skateboarders or snowboarders. They would work in my shop and we would weld everything up and ship it out and we pretty much just monopolized the snow design world and the snow tools support world for the better part of 2 decades. And then I transitioned away from it just somewhat out of boredom and desiring to just not travel as much, as it was intense, 9, 10 months a year, some years. So especially when I had my two boys, and a pivotal time in their life was 4 or 5 years old, and I found that I was missing out on a lot of their new beginnings. And so that'd be the time that I started to transition away from competing and the event building type of stuff, because it took me away
Mhm.
from watching them learn to ride a bike. So that's kind of where things.
That's amazing, Ryan. It's an honor to chat with you. What's your like recreational skiing or snowboarding look like nowadays? Do you still get out a lot?
Yeah, we snowboard almost every day. Just about every single day. In Salt Lake, we have 11-year-old twin daughters, one of which is, or not 11 now, they just actually are 13. They are both into skiing or snowboarding, but one is in particular, Emily is over the top into snowboarding, and so it's a pleasure. I get the excuse to get to go snowboarding with a daughter, you know, so I don't
Yeah.
have any barrier in our family that says, "Oh, you're gonna go snowboarding." It's like,
Right, right,
"No,
right.
I'm taking my kid."
Yeah.
She becomes it's, you know, a lot of time my arm is twisted behind my back to go snowboarding. And no, I'm
Right, right.
kidding. You know, it's like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Can we go snowboarding?" "Oh, oh, yeah." Like, twist my arm,
I
and
guess if
then
I
and
have
yeah, and she says the same thing about skateboard. "Hey, can we go to the skateboard park?" And I'm like, these damn kids want to go to the skate park, and I'm like, my life just sucks. And skateboards are laying in the garage, and I go, oh, these damn kids just. But I'm just so great. It's like amazing. I love it. Like it was the thing I
oh,
wanted
sure.
my entire life was to bitch and moan about skateboards, and so now I get to have all of that. So yeah, we at our parks at the gateway parks we create jumps and things of that nature, and so we get to ride them every day. Well, then I'm there, and then we get up to the mountain quite often, so whether it be in Idaho or Utah or Colorado, but we go all over. So enjoy life for sure.
Yeah, what's your favorite Colorado resort?
I probably Breckenridge is probably one of the better. I'm not an uber fan of Colorado. It was always kind of Colo not so rado for me. We spent a lot of time building events there, but quite honestly, they don't get the greatest natural snow. They Utah gets infinitely more and better. I mean, it's just unbelievable powder up here, and it's very consistent. Idaho is great as well. We love that. I have, I will enjoy any day on snow at any resort, no matter what. Like it doesn't matter, rain or shine, icy or powder, doesn't matter. I'm always grateful that I got a board under my foot. So from that aspect, there's no bad days on a snowboard. So, but I do enjoy, Vail. I enjoyed competing at the X Games in Aspen. Winter Park is a great resort, but Breckenridge is probably the better one.
Yeah. It's so cool to hear you talk about it. I'm a casual weekend warrior over here, and I moved from Texas to ski for the first time in my life a couple years ago. So I like to get out to like Steamboat and Copper Winter
Yeah.
Park when I can. But you might be inspiring me to make my first trek to Utah this season.
Oh, I mean, it's the place. Snowbird is what I have always considered for decades my home mountain, even though I didn't necessarily. We have a home here in Salt Lake now, but it was my place to go because it was
Yeah.
all big mountain riding and amazing snow, and there's nothing like it on earth in Salt Lake for sure.
Okay, I could talk to you forever about this side of your work,
Yeah.
but instead, I'll jump into some of the questions regarding your processes, that kind of thing, how you've gotten here. You mentioned when we talked before that you've never worked for an employer and have always been self employed, from lawn mowing to welding to professional snowboarding. What shaped that entrepreneurial path for you?
I think it was just mainly just not wanting a boss and to be told what to do. From the very beginning of my childhood, I keyed in differently than other family members that if I just did the hard work that was being asked of me up front, I could do anything I wanted on the back end. And
Hmm.
so it was get up early, make my bed. The first thing to do is just make my bed, feel the sense of accomplishment, and the day starts and goes crazy from there. Like, don't do anything else other than the moment I pop out of bed, I make it. And it all of a sudden, your day is organized and you're on your way. And I just learned as the youngest child of my family, my older brother and sister, I watched headbutting. And it was like, do your chores, and no, I'm not going to do my chores. And then I found 3 years younger than them, watching them struggle with their extracurricular activities that they wanted to do because they weren't getting their chores done. And I was like, all I want to do is go ride my bike and jump and get on my skateboard and ride, and play sports or do anything. And it was like, get your chores done first. So it became that, where I would just take control of the things that were in my life. And then anytime that whether it be school or just around yard work around the house or whatever, anytime that felt like that was being taken from me, then I just popped up as the leader of that, and I would get ahead of it. Like, what would they be asking me to do next? What would they be asking me to do? What would the teacher be asking me to do right now? And I would just get ahead of it so that when it came down to it, I had more free time. And then I just enjoyed that luxury. And it allowed me to excel in every aspect when I literally put all of everyone else's needs and services ahead of mine so that I could go, okay, what is going to be required of me today? What is going to be expected of me today by those people? Put their needs, their desires, their asks ahead of mine. And then all of a sudden, my free time of things that I would want to do became overwhelmingly great. And the thing that I found that as I did more of that, everyone else aligned with me. So friends, family members, whatever would pitch in and help me do the things that they wanted me to do anyways, because
Yeah.
I was already in task. So instead of waiting for someone to tell me to do the dishes, I would get up and start doing the dishes, and then everyone would follow my lead and start doing the dishes.
Yeah.
And, the same thing with yard work, the same thing with work, the same thing with play. And anytime I got out ahead of everything and you get into, whether it be soccer, basketball, tennis, and you got ahead of it and you were the first one out there to start playing or start participating, then everyone else comes along and it just became something that I did not want to lose.
Yeah. What you're saying about being so self-made and having that drive from an early age based on your circumstance is really, really admirable. And it also reminds me of something else we talked about where you've built teams for 30 years without ever posting a job ad, relying only on networking and referrals. My question was going to be, why has that approach worked so well for you? And it sounds like you command a lot of respect naturally and have that leadership that's ingrained from your upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, as my wife would say, it's energy. I didn't key into it as energy. I keyed into it as success. You would see that, you would see wins, you would see incremental wins, and you didn't want to have any incremental losses. So what was happening is that when there's an overwhelming nucleus of good energy, people surround themselves with it and they want to be around that. And so when I set the pace for the day in the family or in the business, when I set the pace of positivity and excitement for the day, it will continue until the end of the day. And you raise everyone up, and then there's less work throughout the day. And I tease all the time. It's an ongoing conversation with everyone in my entire life, but it's truly what I believe, and that is that I am 51 and I've never worked a day in my life. And that is true and accurate statement in my mindset. I have not had a job and I've never had to work. Others inside my family or in the business, they're just like, this is all you do is work. And I'm like, it's not work to me. It's my
Mm.
life and I enjoy it. So I really desire other people to find their absolute passion and create a job in it. I wish that for everyone. I am just totally grateful that that happened with me. And I was able to align all of my innate passions and desires into what became my company.
It's definitely a really fantastic story, and I could see where that gratitude would come in, and I think that's a great perspective to be coming at life with. But transitioning a little bit here, you've said it can be challenging to keep today's younger workforce, which I imagine is a lot of your team, focused. What strategies have you found that work best with the younger generation?
It is the art of distraction. So when my oldest son, Matthew, was, say, 2 years old, and I wanted him to eat peas and carrots, I distracted him with turning the spoon into an airplane. So the thing that he didn't want, he desired because I created an atmosphere in that moment of innate desire because I was creating this airplane. And so anytime that kids or employees tend to get sidetracked, you don't draw attention to that. You draw attention to the things that you desire them to do by doing it and promoting it in a positive way. And then that pulls them away from their distractions into productivity. And it is very it can be, challenging to some degree because you can get very frustrated, whether it be personal relationships or business relationships. But it is important that you don't focus on what could happen. You focus on what you desire to happen. And when I look at the day and I go, I want all of these kids to show up and start working. How do I do that? I create an atmosphere that they want to work in. And as I grew the company, there was a point where uh, every single customer, it didn't matter if it was lawn mowing, welding, or the tubing hill, or even snow design. Every single one of my customers wanted me and my personality. And as a business grows, past, say, 5, 10 employees and say 10,000 customers, you get to 50,000 customers or 100,000 customers, it's an impossible task for you to create a relationship with 10,000, 15,000, 25,000. It starts becoming infinitely work harder for you to have an intimate relationship with your customers. So what I did is I created an intimate relationship with all of my employees, who then, by osmosis, created an infinitely better relationship with every one of my customers. So, my goal over the last 10 years was focus on the kids that work for me and what are their needs every single day, and then, teach them, train them, and then they will spill that into customers, and they're like a little bunch of mini me's, you
Right.
know? They adapt, it's funny because I'll go, "You can't use all of my sayings." It's a joke, and I'll
Yeah.
say but I hear it. I listen to him from afar, and I can go, "Oh my gosh, he's talking to the customer exactly the way I would," and that wasn't a part of their initial personality, but
Sure.
they acquire it because of what you've inspired to them, and I give to them. I don't just we pay them well, that's important, and we reward them with small things, things that they would want, and it's important to make sure that you're looking at every employee as an individual of what do they want rather than just a blanket, "Oh, I'm gonna get everyone a Yeti." Like you
Right.
come up with personal items, and they don't have to be expensive. They just have to be personal to who they are, and then that appreciation gets sold to every one of your customers.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice for entrepreneurs and business owners and leaders on how they can inspire people and give back to their employees in more ways than just, I mean, what you said about specific gifts is awesome, but like just what you give to people every day by showing them how to do business and how to approach customer and client service. It's fantastic. Ryan, for young entrepreneurs or athletes looking to build a business like you have, what advice would you give them for your journey?
It is a relentless pursuit. I mean, that's what it is. The only difference between success and failure is not giving up. Every single thing, doesn't matter what it was, throughout my entire careers have been riddled with failures. And every one of those failures became an unbelievably great learning experience. And I don't welcome failure, but I accept it and embrace it because every time I find that I've done something wrong, I now have found a way to not do that again. and to continue to improve. So, it's just working harder than everyone else, staying focused on it and staying focused to the mission because it takes time and energy and it needs to become a part of you in order for it to be the most successful business or experience that you want to go on. It doesn't even matter if it's a vacation. You put more time into that vacation, you'll have a better vacation. And you put more time into your meal that you're preparing for dinner, and you have a better dinner. You put more time into your business and your employees, and you have better employees and a better business. It is. A lot of people would look at it and they would say, unfortunate amount of hours, but it's not. Grateful that it's 18 and 20-hour days. And I love my life. I don't. I often go, oh my gosh, it's already midnight. I mean, that's the way it works, and you're just like, "I can't even believe the day just flew." And so there's not a work hard, play hard atmosphere, it's always focused.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate what you said about, failure and how I've heard before a phrase like failure is the greatest teacher. And it sounds like, again, you haven't worked a day in your life. You love what you do. That's awesome. And I'm all the more grateful for you scheduling me in here. What's next for Gateway Parks? Do you foresee any specific growth plans for the next like 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, the project I'm working on now is to try to stabilize a lot of the Gateway Park employees into year-round jobs that don't necessarily transition them from Gateway to manufacturing and back and forth. I would like them to be focused on the Gateway experience year-round. And so we're working on synthetic snow surfacing so we can have summer tubing and summer tubing, summer skiing, summer snowboarding, and
Cool.
then winter. And working on a water park type atmosphere around that so that we can, again, you find good employees, I want to keep them and I don't want to let them go. And I do that by stabilizing their life as well.
Fantastic. So you said, and when you said water park atmosphere, you weren't referring to an actual water park, but like just the atmosphere of like, come have a fun day in the sun kind of thing.
No, almost an exact water park atmosphere, water park. So my idea is to have tubing into a splashdown pool.
Cool.
And then be able to cover that pool with a very structural floor and use the pool as my snowmaking for my operation in the winter.
Wow.
And then in the summertime, take the cover off and transition it into so you'd have the ability to dry tube next to a splashdown tube. So, parents could come in there and they could go tubing with their kids and not necessarily go get dunked in the pool. But these Utah, Idaho, it's 100 degrees in the summertime, and you need reprieve, and it makes sense to just be able to utilize our same facilities year round.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds super smart, like great foresight. And I bet that's going to be great.
Yeah, we're excited.
Okay. Well, Ryan, where could people find out more about what you're doing over at Gateway Parks? Any social medias or websites you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go to gatewayparks.com, that gives the best feedback, or go to planetbuilt.com, that kind of gives you more of a picture of the rest of our life.
Hmm.
But we're not a self-promoting company either. We love to acquire customers through the network of, word of mouth, and they are the best customers because they create loyalty. And if it's synthetic, if you advertise it, then there's a bar, and if there's no advertisement and they find it and they see it and it becomes a part of them, then there's no bar that they're of unintended expectations. So we've always wanted to be in that world of under promise and over deliver, and marketing and advertising oftentimes will overpromise and create an unintended expectation that feels like under-delivered. And so we love our company to not have a huge amount of marketing, and our marketing is getting in front of that customer and winning them over and adopting them as your family.
Ryan, any final thoughts before we bring this conversation to a close?
Yeah, no, I think that for bigger businesses and things of that nature, it is important to, that they're going, especially if you're expanding into new operations, you're gonna need to find recruiting facilitators like yourself to be able to do that. And when you get those and you start to vet through in there, you want to find alignment immediately with
Mm,
those people that you're bringing in. And that's been the most important part of ours is when we do get new employees that want to come in and work for you, it's finding alignment and making sure from the get-go that they are aligned with you and their vision and relating that directly to them immediately. 6 months down the road, the investment you've put into the employee is not wasted. It's finding a place. I'm a firm believer that anyone that walks the earth that wants to be employed, I can find a place for them. It's just
mm.
finding what their desires and passions are and getting having them align into a certain portion of our business. When you go out to recruit and you're bringing me employees, that'll be the first thing that I do is get with them and find out who they are and what they're wanting and say it's most important for me to know what you want out of this, not the other way around. My expectations need to start to align with theirs as well. It is a relationship. Like it's not a boss and a subordinate relationship. It's not. It should be equal. And what their needs are and my needs are need to align so that there is no push and pull.
Yeah, absolutely. This relates to some things we talk about over at Snelling internally about how the first week for employees who we send out is the most important. Training needs to be such a focus, and developing that relationship, making sure people feel welcome and part of the team right off the bat is how you make a lasting partnership with employees. So I think that was astute, and I appreciate you going through that. Ryan Neptune, thank you so much for talking to me today about Gateway Parks.
Thank you so much for your time and I appreciate it. This was super fun.
Thanks, Ryan. Great talking with you.
Okay.